Hey, Sean here. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to do a series about retro gaming and share some of my influences from over the years, so I guess I'd start right at the beginning. I started my gaming hobby all the way back in the early 90s, starting with the Sega Mega Drive. These were, and still are, some of my favourite gaming experiences. They're ones that I'll occasionally dig out of storage to play when I'm feeling that need for nostalgia. There's no doubt that games have come a long way since then, through gameplay and graphics. It's crazy to see just how far they've come in almost 30 years, but back then, times were simpler, downloadable content didn't exist, and games certainly didn't have microtransactions. They were actually complete experiences from start to finish. Some of my fondest memories of gaming came from the Sega Mega Drive. The early 90s were wild. We had Power Ranger games, Streets of Rage, Sonic the Hedgehog and Mortal Kombat. All amazing games, but some of my favourites were the Disney movie adaptations. We had the likes of The Lion King, Aladdin and Toy Story. There were other Disney games, all pretty fun, but these three were some of the hardest platformers on the console. It's crazy to think that Disney had these adaptations and were actually pretty challenging. These were kids' games, but it didn't matter at the time because they were really fun to play. Even if it meant failing and starting the game again, you'd eventually play them so much that you'd become a pro. Looking back now, it's pretty clear as to why these games were as difficult as they were. They were all pretty short. Most of these games were back then. Most of the games didn't have save systems. You could probably play these games from start to finish in an hour or two if you knew what you were doing. Making them challenging would stretch out that playtime, the perfect solution to game rentals. And it's safe to say that these days, children's movie adaptations are probably going to be easy and pretty bad in general, but a little longer than these Mega Drive games. These Sega adaptations actually had a lot of effort put into them, and they were great games in their own right. We had the likes of Traveller Tales developing the Toy Story game, Westwood Studios developing the Lion King game, and Virgin Interactive developing the Aladdin game. These were all respected developers, and they made legitimately good games out of the movies they were interpreting, when they probably could have ended up being quick and easy cash grabs. I know it sounds strange to hold these old Disney games to such high regard, but it's simple. They were quality games that didn't need the bell and whistles that we see in modern day games. They didn't have collectibles. They offered simple and challenging fun gameplay that kept you coming back again and again. They looked pretty good at the time too, resembling the films a lot. The Lion King and Aladdin both had these intense platforming sections that demanded precision. One level in The Lion King had you trying to jump from log to log, travelling up a waterfall. Even the second level in the game had huge difficulty spikes which see you ride an ostrich. You'd have to duck, jump and double jump to avoid obstacles. It was so hard, infuriating at times. The prison level in Aladdin immediately came to mind. You'd have to jump between blocks, which would recede into the wall, miss time and you'd fall. Alongside these blocks you'd have to dodge spikes and swinging balls. Both games needed good timing, which would be pretty difficult as a kid, but it was entirely fair once you got used to it. The challenging nature of these games would mean you'd likely fail at first, but every time you'd play, you'd get a little bit better as you learn the timings, then it would become second nature to you. Toy Story was probably the oddest Disney game out of all of these, and probably out of all of the Mega Drive games I owned. Its gameplay would change itself up every so often. The first level started as a typical platformer, then out of nowhere came a top-down RC car level like Micro Machines. This wasn't the end of the bizarre twists. It threw out the 2D platformer formula once more, with a first-person level, seeing you collect little green aliens on a timer. For me, that was probably the first time I ever saw first person in a game, especially considering most of the games on the Mega Drive were 2D or top-down. It blew my mind at the time. It was as if the developers were experimenting with what they could do in the Mega Drive. It seems even wilder that they would do that in a Disney game, and I was all for it. It was a unique game to close out a generation too. I might have all of the levels burnt into my brain at this point, but I also have all of the sounds from these games ingrained in there too. The soundtracks were so memorable, what with them being VGM adaptations of the film's soundtracks, it rounded up to be something pretty faithful to the source material, well, as much as a 16-bit game could. One thing that's pretty interesting about these games is that they were all released near the end of the console's life. In the UK, the PlayStation 1 actually released before Toy Story did on the Mega Drive. It blows my mind to think that Toy Story would have released within months of platformer Crash Bandicoot. They seem so far apart. I remained blissfully aware of this until around 1997, when I received a PS1 for Christmas alongside Crash, thus beginning a new era of gaming for me, but those years before were really something special to me. It's a time when Sega reigned supreme. It was an incredible and sometimes bizarre time for games, and especially licensed adaptations that came out by the boatload. We even got a RoboCop vs. the Terminator game. I don't know why, but that happened. To me, it was a time when Disney had some killer games on the Mega Drive. And after this era, the level of quality pretty much falls right off a cliff for Disney's licensed games, with the exception of a few, like Kingdom Hearts, which is probably a bit more to do with Square Enix creatively. But back to the Mega Drive. The level design and the music in these 16-bit era games were absolutely iconic. I can still see and hear them in my mind, and it's not just the Disney games, but others like Sonic, Mortal Kombat, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, ToeJam and Earl, and Revenge of the Shinobi. Altered Beast is in there too. There's an insane amount to list. I could go on forever. There's something so memorable and unique about the games of this era. It was a simpler time. One thing is for sure though, the Mega Drive was packed full of memorable gaming experiences. Even if they were pretty challenging games, they're memories that I've carried with myself for pretty much my entire life, and I still get tempted to go back and play them even after all these years, and I probably will again soon. I'm going to leave it there for today's video. I'll be doing more of these kinds of videos with another on the Mega Drive era coming up soon. Starting with the Disney ones was probably an odd choice, but they are some of the earliest games I remember, and they were a blast at the time, so why not? If any of you ever get the chance to try them, go for it, because I think they are some of the best examples of platformers from that era. Either way, let me know in the comments what you think, and what your earliest game memories are. Until next time, take care.